The day she took my spot, nobody even looked at me. It happened in a meeting I had prepared for 3 weeks. Slides polished. Numbers verified. Strategy clear. I walked into the conference room expecting to lead it like I always did. Instead, I saw her standing at the front. Smiling. Confident. Holding my presentation clicker. "This is our new project lead," my manager announced. "She'll be taking over from here." Taking over. From me. No warning. No conversation. No explanation. I felt the air leave my lungs. My name wasn't mentioned. My work wasn't acknowledged. It was as if I had never existed. And the worst part? Everyone just accepted it. I sat down slowly while she began presenting my ideas as if they were her own. Same structure. Same phrases. Even the examples I had personally researched. I looked at my manager, waiting for him to correct it. To say something. He avoided my eyes. That's when I realized. This wasn't a last-minute decision. It was planned. And I had just been erased. But what none of them knew. She hadn't taken my spot. She had taken my responsibility. And she had no idea what that truly meant. I had been with the company for 6 years. 6 years of staying late. Fixing mistakes no one else wanted to admit. Cleaning up disasters quietly so leadership could look good. I wasn't loud. I wasn't flashy. I didn't network at happy hours or flatter executives. I just delivered results. When projects were falling apart, they gave them to me. When clients were angry, I calmed them down. When deadlines felt impossible, I made them possible. My manager, Brian, used to call me his secret weapon. But somewhere along the way, things shifted. The company began focusing on image. Social media presence. Public perception. Young energy. And then she arrived. Sophie. Confident. Polished. Perfect smile. Always dressed like she was ready for a magazine cover. Within weeks, she was everywhere. Lunches with leadership. Private meetings. Photos in company newsletters. I told myself it didn't matter. Because talent wins in the end, right? I was wrong. Talent doesn't always win. Sometimes, visibility does. And Sophie was very visible. The official announcement came 2 days later. An email. Subject line, exciting leadership update. I opened it with shaking hands. Sophie will now lead the Henderson account as part of our new strategic direction. That was my account. The biggest client in the company. The one I had rebuilt from the edge of cancellation. There was a single sentence about me. We thank her for her past contributions. Past. Like I was already gone. People started treating me differently. Quieter conversations when I walked in. Pity smiles. Awkward silence. Sophie stopped by my desk that afternoon. I hope there are no hard feelings, she said sweetly. Brian just thinks I'm a better fit for where the company is heading. Better fit. I looked at her and realized something important. She thought she won. But she didn't understand the pressure she just inherited. The Henderson account wasn't glamorous. It was unstable. Demanding. One mistake away from disaster. And only I knew how fragile it truly was. They didn't replace me because I failed. They replaced me because she looked better presenting success. And now? She would have to actually create it. The first problem happened fast. 2 weeks after she took over, the client requested emergency revisions. Complex changes. Tight deadline. The kind of situation that required deep knowledge of their history. Sophie called for a team meeting. Her voice sounded steady, but her eyes weren't. "Can someone explain why the previous strategy included these projections?" she asked. I stayed quiet. She was looking at my numbers. The ones based on months of research and subtle agreements with the client. She didn't know the backstory. She didn't know the compromises we had negotiated. She didn't know the promises made behind closed doors. Because she had never done the real work. The deadline passed. The client was not impressed. Emails grew colder. Brian started looking stressed. And for the first time since that meeting, Sophie stopped smiling so much. I didn't celebrate. I watched. Because this wasn't about revenge. It was about truth catching up. And truth always moves quietly at first. Within a month, the cracks widened. Client satisfaction scores dropped. Internal deadlines were missed. Sophie began delegating aggressively, pushing pressure onto the team. But leadership still protected her. In meetings, Brian would say, "Transitions take time." When mistakes happened, he blamed legacy processes. Meaning me. It was subtle. But it was clear. They were preparing to pin the failure on my previous management. That's when something inside me shifted. It wasn't anger. It was clarity. If they were going to rewrite history, I needed to protect mine. So I gathered everything. Emails proving client approvals. Draft timelines showing who made which decisions. Messages from Brian praising my strategies. I didn't share them. Not yet. I just organized them. Because something told me this story wasn't over. And when it reached its breaking point, I would be ready. The collapse came during the quarterly review. The Henderson client joined the executive call. Their tone was calm. Too calm. "We're concerned," the client said. "Performance has declined significantly since the leadership change." Silence. Sophie's face lost color. Brian jumped in quickly. "We're adjusting to new processes." The client interrupted. "We were told this transition would improve results." Improve. Not destroy. Then came the moment no one expected. The client asked for documentation comparing strategies before and after the change. Data. Proof. And suddenly, all the polished smiles in the room meant nothing. Numbers don't care about image. Numbers don't care about popularity. Numbers expose reality. Brian looked at me. For the first time in months, he looked directly at me. And I saw it. Regret. The internal audit was quiet but intense. Leadership reviewed performance metrics. Email trails. Decision timelines. And the truth became impossible to ignore. Under my management, the account had grown 18%. Under Sophie's? It had declined. Recommendations I made had been dismissed. Strategies I built had been altered without understanding. The narrative they tried to create, that I was outdated, collapsed. Sophie wasn't evil. She was unprepared. And Brian? He had chosen optics over competence. When the results were presented, no one spoke. The room felt heavy. And for the first time since she took my spot, I wasn't invisible anymore. 2 weeks later, Sophie was reassigned. Quietly. No dramatic announcement. Just a subtle shift. Brian called me into his office. "I think we moved too quickly," he said. Too quickly. That's how he described replacing 6 years of loyalty. He offered me my position back. Full authority. Public recognition. But something had changed in me. I looked at him calmly and asked, "If the numbers hadn't exposed the truth, would you have defended me?" He didn't answer. That was answer enough. I accepted the role temporarily, to stabilize the account. But emotionally, I had already stepped away. Rebuilding the account wasn't hard. Rebuilding trust inside myself was. For weeks, I asked myself why I had tolerated being erased so quietly. Why I believed staying silent was strength. Here's what I learned. Loyalty without boundaries becomes permission. And silence can be mistaken for weakness. When the client renewed their contract under my leadership again, the applause felt different. It wasn't validation. It was confirmation. I didn't need their spotlight. My work had always spoken. They just chose not to listen. And that wasn't my failure. It was theirs. Looking back, Sophie didn't steal my spot. She borrowed it. And she couldn't handle the weight of it. Because leadership isn't about presentation. It's about responsibility. It's about carrying pressure no one sees. It's about protecting your team when things fall apart. She wanted the title. But she wasn't ready for the truth behind it. And Brian? He learned that choosing favorites can cost more than loyalty ever will. As for me, I stopped trying to compete for visibility. I started competing with my own standards. Now, when I walk into meetings, I don't wonder if I'm replaceable. I know my value. Not because they gave it back to me, but because I never lost it. If you've ever been replaced, overlooked, or pushed aside, remember this. Sometimes people take your position, but they can't take your foundation. And when truth shows up, it doesn't need to shout. It simply stands there and lets everyone else realize who was holding everything together all along. That's not revenge. That's reality. And reality? It always handles the truth. Looking back, Sophie didn't steal my spot. She borrowed it. And she couldn't handle the weight of it. Because leadership isn't about presentation. It's about responsibility. It's about carrying pressure no one sees. It's about fixing problems quietly while others take credit. It's about standing firm when things begin to fall apart. She wanted the title. But she wasn't ready for the truth behind it. And Brian? He learned that choosing image over integrity comes with consequences. As for me, I stopped trying to compete for attention. I stopped trying to prove myself to people who only value what looks good on the surface. Instead, I focused on something deeper. My standards. My growth. My peace. Now, when I walk into meetings, I don't wonder if I'm replaceable. I know my value. Not because they handed it back to me, but because I never truly lost it. If you've ever been replaced, overlooked, made to feel not good enough, remember this. Sometimes people take your position, but they can't take your foundation. And when truth finally steps into the light, it doesn't scream. It doesn't fight. It simply stands there and lets everyone realize who was really holding everything together. That's not revenge. That's reality. And reality? It always handles the truth. If this story felt familiar, if you've ever been underestimated and then proved them wrong, make sure you subscribe to this channel for more powerful stories of betrayal, comeback, and justice. There's another story waiting for you, one that might hit even closer to home. And trust me, you don't want to miss it.